Daniel Thornton had built his restaurant empire by knowing every detail of his business, but tonight he walked the rain-soaked alley behind his flagship location as just another observer in worn jeans and a simple jacket. At 52, he had learned that the truth about his company could only be found when people did not know who he was watching. The narrow alley stretched between old brick buildings, lit by vintage lanterns that cast dancing shadows on the wet pavement. Daniel had been conducting these undercover visits for months, concerned about rumors of declining service and employee morale at his most prestigious location. As he approached the staff exit, he heard soft voices echoing off the walls. A young woman emerged from the restaurant, her blonde hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, wearing the black apron that marked her as kitchen staff. She carried a cloth bag that seemed unusually full for someone ending a shift. Daniel stepped into the shadows, not to spy maliciously, but to understand what was happening in his establishment after hours. He watched as the woman, who appeared to be in her mid-20s, walked to what he initially thought was just a pile of discarded boxes. But then he saw them. Two small figures huddled beneath a makeshift cardboard shelter pressed against the alley wall. A boy of perhaps 8 years old wearing a knitted cap, and a little girl no more than 5, clutching a worn stuffed animal. The reality hit him like a physical blow. "Sarah brought dinner," the woman said gently, kneeling beside the children. Her voice carried the exhausted tenderness of someone who had been carrying the world on her shoulders for far too long. Daniel watched, transfixed, as Sarah opened her bag and carefully distributed what he now realized were dinner rolls, leftover soup in a container, and what appeared to be slices of the restaurant's fresh bread. She had not been stealing. She had been surviving. "Is it still warm, Mama?" the little girl asked, her voice small but hopeful. "Yes, sweetheart. Eat slowly so your tummy feels better," Sarah replied, breaking the bread into smaller pieces. "Tommy, make sure Emma gets enough. You are such a good big brother." Daniel felt his throat constrict. This was not the employee theft he had been investigating. This was a mother doing whatever it took to feed her children, using the only resources she had access to. He thought of his own comfortable home, his well-stocked kitchen, his life of abundance. As he stood in the shadows, fragments of conversation reached him. Sarah spoke softly to her children about school, about the library books they were reading, about small dreams that seemed enormous when you were living in a cardboard shelter. Her voice never carried bitterness, only determination and love. "Thar." Little girl, Emma, coughed softly, and Sarah immediately pulled off her own sweater to wrap around the child's shoulders. "Better?" she asked, and Emma nodded, snuggling closer. "Mama, when will we have a real house again?" Tommy asked with the directness that only children possess. Sarah was quiet for a moment, stroking his hair. "Soon, baby. Mama is working very hard, and things are going to get better. I promise." Daniel had heard enough. He understood now that whatever circumstances had brought this family to live in an alley behind his restaurant, Sarah was not someone taking advantage of her position. She was someone drowning who was trying to save her children with the only life preserver she could find. He stepped forward carefully, not wanting to frighten them. "Excuse me?" he said softly. Sarah immediately stood, positioning herself protectively. Between the stranger and her children, her body tense with the wariness of someone who had learned that the world could be dangerous. "I am sorry," Daniel said, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. "I could not help but notice that you might need some assistance." "We are fine," Sarah said quickly, though her voice shook slightly. "We are not doing anything wrong." "I know," Daniel said gently. "I can see that you are taking very good care of your children. My name is Daniel, and I would like to help, if you would let me." Sarah studied his face in the lamplight, seeing something there that made her shoulders relax just slightly. "I work at the restaurant," she said quietly. I only take food that would be thrown away anyway. I would never steal." "I believe you," Daniel said, and meant it completely. "How long have you been living out here?" The question broke something inside Sarah. Tears began to flow down her cheeks as weeks of suppressed fear and exhaustion finally found release. 3 weeks, she whispered. "We lost our apartment when I got sick and missed too much work. I'm trying to save money for a deposit on a new place, but it is so hard." Daniel looked at this brave woman who had been sleeping in an alley to keep her children safe, who had been taking leftover bread to keep them fed, who had maintained her dignity and their hope despite circumstances that would have broken many people. In that moment, he felt something shift in his chest, something that had been dormant for years. "Sarah," he said, "I think I might be able to help with more than just tonight. But first, let me ask you something. Would you and your children like to get out of this alley and somewhere warm?" She looked at him with a mixture of hope and caution. "Who are you, really?" Daniel smiled, realizing that honesty was the only way forward. Someone who just learned that the best people in his company are the ones he never knew existed. Someone who would like very much to make sure you and your children never have to sleep outside again. As Sarah gathered her children and their few belongings, Daniel made a silent promise. He had spent his life building a business, but tonight he had found something far more valuable. He had found a family worth fighting for, and a woman whose strength and character had captured not just his respect, but his heart. Sometimes the most important discoveries happen not in boardrooms or corner offices, but in the quiet moments, when we see who people really are when they think no one is watching.